show you how to remove the door panel on the Mazda 626. Some supplies that you need are jack stand, big crowbar, and a really hot butane torch. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to show you how to turn this on your 1993 to 1997 Mazda 626 into that from a 5th gen 98 to 2002 Mazda 626. Alright, what I'm going to be attempting to do today, at least, is to modify the 93-94 courtesy lights with the 98 to 2002. Now the difference of these is, obviously there's a different bracket here. This one slides into the door, and then on the other side is a tiny little tang, and it clips on the back, and that's how your courtesy light stays in place. As you can see, the light housing itself is removable. On the 5th gens, it's built directly into the door. On the 5th gen, as you'll notice, there's no light socket, it's just the cover. And this is basically what it is on the 4th gen. And the difference being on the 5th gen, the light bulb housing is built into the door. It's only the lens cover that gets popped onto the door. So what I want to do is modify this because I like the silver. I want the silver bezel to basically go on top of that so that I can fit this in the 4th gen. I can't just take a light socket from a 5th gen because there is no such thing. It's built into the door. This is physically molded into the door. There is no way, I guess you could cut it out. This is a junkyard part, really large crack here, so I don't care if I mess this up. This is just an experiment. And if this experiment is successful, then I will go and redo my efforts and actually install it into my car with better housings because this one's cracked. Okay, see that prong there? I figure that this tab here is going to stick out just about as far as that prong will. So if I actually go into the car where this prong fits in and I cut out a slit big enough for that to fit in, I might just be able to fit this entire assembly directly in. It's going to take some modification. I'm going to be using my Dremel, and this is generically known as a rotary tool, and I will be using my carbide bit, and this is the same bit that I used for the 96-97 cup holder mod, as well as the same bit that I used to port my head when I did the port matching. So this bit has seen some travel, and it's been ground down to the point now that it's basically only good for grinding plastic. And this carbide bit will chew right through this plastic, and I'll show you that in a little bit. You can see the cast marks, tiny little circles right here on either side. That's basically where these need to sit. If it's going to work like I think it's going to work, then it should actually end up looking fairly good. And then I will use some adhesive and then glue this piece right on top because this cover just pops right out. So you can take a screwdriver, and there's a tiny little notch here, and then you can pop this lens out if you ever need to replace the light bulb. So I'm not worried about permanently fusing these two pieces together. That's actually a good thing in my case. That's what I want to do. And then once these tabs are out here, then I'll go onto the car and figure out a good way to actually mount this to the car. And if I need to use adhesive and super glue this to the car itself, I will. I'm going to go about halfway across that circle. So I figure I'll need something like that. I don't know how well you can see that. Basically something like that. I'm going to cut that out. And that's going to be my starting point. Got some ways to go there. But I don't like how this round, how it's too round. You'll notice it's cutting circles. And I'm going to have to switch to something that's going to cut in a straighter line. Well, that worked pretty darn good. Okay, now we have that kind of fitted up, except the silver tab here. So I'm going to have to make a notch for that silver tab. Actually, if I take the glass out, I think the glass is what's stopping me right now. When I add these, the little tabs here stick out behind the silver bezel. So I'm going to have to Dremel slots or the space for them to go. There's the silver tab in there. And that's how much I ground down. That's how much I ground out. Now it sits flush. So I just have to do that to all 4 spots, and I will be right back. There's pretty much a new housing right there. 5th gen mod, or a 4th gen mod with 5th gen silver trim. I just think that's a neat mod I just came up with. Well, I didn't just come up with, I've been wanting to do it for a while, but that I finally made into a tangible result. So this is going to be my 4th gen to 5th gen door courtesy light conversion modification. That's the long way of saying it, but there might be a shorter way. Or we could just call this the DJ Devon 3 courtesy light mod. Maybe that's a little bit shorter. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you guys. There's a person that I ran this idea by a while back, maybe a month or 2 ago, and they said it was impossible. Said it couldn't be done. Said just to forget it and don't even try it. Because they couldn't wrap their mind around how it was going to be done. And I tried explaining to them and they just couldn't figure it out. So now maybe you can see what I saw. Ta-da. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. And his phone's going to be ringing off the hooks to fetch some of these for the 4th gen owners in Europe that don't have these. And you know who I'm talking about there again. FIS and Zepticon out of Norway. I'm sure you guys will probably want to do that mod. That's going to make your interiors look really, really nice. Huh, Zepticon? How about it? You know you want it. And now you know how to do it. And so I'm going to take my door card off, and I still have to Dremel out these little prongs here. But I want to get a close-in look so that everyone can see how flush that sits. And then we're going to compare that with the 5th gen. Because you're going to have your doors open for a while, most likely, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery. Now we're going to come over here, try and get this one. Hopefully it's not the same kind of deal. No, this one's run down in there. So without removing these, you're not going to be able to get the door card off, so you have to remove that. Alright, so we're going in the right order. That's a little bit looser there. Aha! And there goes a clip. No, that's just dirt. That looks like cork. Now that we have them all popped out all the way around, the only thing holding this up is the track. The same thing as when I took the door panel off the Saturn. It's the same exact thing. There's just a track, and you just have to lift this up over the track. But while you do this, you have to make sure that this handle goes inside. So now that we have all the clips out, we just pulled it all in one shot, really, which works out. But make sure that if any of those clips drop on the ground, that you get those clips. You're going to want those clips when it comes time to reinstall. So if you're doing this on a dirt or gravel or grass or whatever, I recommend that you do it on cardboard, over cardboard. So just in case any of those clips fall down, you will be able to easily find them, because you will need them. You manipulate this latch so that it goes inside, and it's kind of like a little puzzle there, like so. Then you just push straight up on the door. You have to pay attention so that when you pull up on this, that this section goes up straight. You know, it's not that much travel, but you still have to make sure that it goes straight up. So something like this. All right. Now that you have it in this position, I don't even have to look because I know what's coming. Wiring. I'm going to bring you around. Now that you have your door panel off, you're going to want to go wire hunting. So look for harnesses, and there's only 2 on my car. Depending on your electronic trim level, you might have other switches, other harnesses. goes without saying, you're going to have to disconnect that before you can take this over to the bench. So we want to get the pocket off in order to get out this courtesy light. So we're going to have to flip it over. And on the back, you'll notice we have two bolts, and on the back you'll notice that we have two screws here which help hold in your speaker grill. Then we have one screw here, two screws over here, and all those screws have to come out. On the bottom there are 7 screws, and you have to remove all 7 screws. Alright, including the 2 on the speaker grill bracket, and then your pocket should drop right off. And on this side, you just make sure that that wire gets through there, obviously. And now there's your pocket. So one neat thing about the 4th gen is that we can remove these sockets. Let's say your bulb burns itself into the socket housing and completely destroys your socket housing, which is exactly what happened to me. It's nice that I can take this housing off and then swap in a new one. That's nice. Okay, so first we have to get these tangs off. See if I can get you a good shot of those. Gonna get in there and bend that back. Oh, that works great. Like so. That seems to be the easiest method, is to just grab a hold of one tang and bend it. And if you're wondering what tool this is a tiny little needle nose plier for sewing or for computer work. Is also handy in order to put in pins and take out pins and computers. This is what I use them for. But today, these are doubling as a tang removal tool. As you can see, I put in an aftermarket bulb, blue to be specific, because I wanted to look cool. And it melted the housing around here because the wattage was obviously incorrect, and that's what you get for buying cheap Chinese shit. It melted my housing. And this probably happened, I don't know, probably happened about 8 to 10 years ago. I've been riding around like this, and I had no idea how to actually get in there and change it. It does come with a connector. It is interchangeable. Find a new one in a junkyard, and now you can have at it and swap those out if this one becomes damaged. The bulb itself, I can't even remove the bulb without breaking it because it has melted the ABS plastic around it, and this is high temp ABS, so it should not melt for this bulb. This bulb got so hot that it became a fire hazard, and I could have caught my car on fire. Out with the old, in with the new. The end of each tab is dead on with the hole. So now I just have to figure out how wide to cut the slit and how deep. And because this has a locking tab mechanism on it, like so, I want to cut this kind of out in a castle wall shaped. Okay, so right now I have my hole, right? Alright, the first thing I'm going to want to do is cut a slit directly where that hole is, because this slit directly lines up with this top portion. That means that it's also going to be about that wide and that wide. So I guess it's going to look like a little TIE fighter. So this is the space that I want to Dremel. And doing that in such a fine area is going to be nearly impossible. I really don't see me Dremeling that well. Because I can barely draw as it is, let alone Dremel. Don't forget your safety glasses. Alright, after some more dremeling and shaping, you can kind of see the pattern because of the lock. It has to sit down in there. And along this edge here, it actually gets wider. So that's what is going to go on each side of this little hole here. And so now I'm going to start on the other side. It's the same exact bracket in reverse from the other side or this side, so it'll fit. Alright, before I run out of battery, I just want to show you what it looks like while it's installed in the door. Looks pretty good. It is fairly secure, but that all depends on how tight you are able to get these two pegs. If you Dremel this out too much and it becomes loose, of course this whole entire housing is just going to fall right through. But you can silicone. And that's what I plan to do. I plan on using silicone. Oh, and no, they do not lock into place because I forgot about the brown outer housing, and there's not enough space for the actual locking tabs to work. But they do fit in there so that they could lock if the brown housing piece wasn't there. So that's basically what it looks like from the outside. Can't even really tell. It almost looks stock. Okay, now that I have my door cards all cut up and I'm ready to install this in the car, I need to find a way to permanently fix these two pieces together so they're permanent. And what I've decided to go with is 3M window weld. This stuff is fairly expensive. It's $25 just for this one can, and this is known as a 1/10 canister. It has a real fine nozzle on there. What I plan on doing is filling this channel up with the window weld and then just slapping that on there and hoping that stays. And I cannot do that with the lens cover attached, so this is going to have to come out. I will have to pierce this. I got a feeling I want to pierce the bottom first. Yep, it's all black in there. I wonder if I can actually pierce this with this cap. Yeah. Oh, that fucking sucks. God, that has some sticky shit. Looks like tar. Simply because I don't want any chance of the excess coming out the side. I want to try and keep all of it in the lip if possible. Oh man, that is tough. It takes a lot of pressure. Well, that's one down. That's okay. How does this shit take to cure? I'll find out when I'm done here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do that and I'll be right back. Well, that was fairly quick. That probably only took me about a minute. Okay, I think that's good. I'll just let that cure for however long it takes to cure. And now for the other side. I don't know, it might actually be easier to go around this after it cures and then cut off the excess. I think I'm going to try that. I'm just going to leave this one sitting out and then wait for that to dry and cure and then come back at it with a razor blade. We'll see if that method works any better. And then I'll set this off to the side, somewhere that I'm not going to touch this. Through movie magic, I'll be right back when this stuff is cured. Man, this stuff just gets everywhere. It's like one tiny little smudge, and this stuff is a pain in the, this stuff is really messy. It really is. It's like trying to work with peanut butter and you just end up getting peanut butter everywhere. And I don't think that this stuff is going to end up coming off. I'm going to have some black marks on my fingers for quite a while. And yeah. Alright, I'm going to show you some steps that I did not cover. I went ahead and traced a line, and you will barely be able to see that line that you traced around the carpet. It's actually better just to push this face in to make a dent in the carpet, and then you basically cut the carpet back just a little bit so that you can fit this down on here flush. But no matter what I did, the tabs just would not lock on the other side. So what I ended up doing, which I didn't want to do, but I had to, was I used window weld on the tabs. Like I said earlier, I wanted these big tabs just in case I had to do this, so I had the large surface area of those tabs to work with, because I knew that it was going to hold silicone or window weld or some type of adhesive very well. And yes, now these are a permanent fixture. I can't take these out. However, if I ever do want to take them out, I have to remove the door panel anyway, just like I would have had to in the 4th gen. In the 4th gen, you have prongs, and you would still have to remove it by removing the prongs. Instead of removing just the top, yes, it's not as convenient, but since I'm a 4th gen owner, I'm used to this method anyway. So what I would do from here in the future is to use my X-Acto knife and just cut out the bit of window weld that's holding it in, and it's just a tiny little bit of adhesive, basically RTV rubber, and I'll just be able to push my housings through. But right now with the window weld, it is holding that really secure. I can't push this out. Honestly, I would have to put about 20 to 30 pounds of force in order to push that out. So one nice thing about window weld is that it holds it in place, or silicone. Now, you could also use silicone, I imagine. Just make sure that it's a nice thick adhesive. You probably could use Gorilla Glue as well. I don't think you would want to do this with super glue. You want something that's got some give to it. which is why I went with the window weld, because it's basically rubber. So it does hold it in place, but just in case something happens to the housing, it's got a little bit of play, but it still sits flush. And that's the key here, is that you want it flush. After I cut around, made my hole, made sure it was as flush as I could get it, then I used my window weld on the caulk gun, put that around the back tabs so that I didn't have to stay here for an hour or so pressing this down. I just went ahead and I put my my ratchet box right on top of here as a weight, and that weighted it down, and I just left it sitting like that for a couple hours. Come back and it's nice and flush, but you'll notice that I cut back the carpeting a little, just a hair too much on each side, and what I did for that was I used a butane torch and lit that up, and after I cut it back, I used the hot end of the screwdriver to kind of push back my carpeting so that it would make a perfect oval. And it pretty much did. It pretty much did a really good job. But as you can see, there's just a tiny little gap there. So what I'm doing is taking the end of a nail, and I'm just trying to manipulate the nap, kind of like a carpet mover tool, and just move some of that nap over. And just continue with that until it basically you can't see around the edge there, and that's going to look flush. And that's pretty much how it's going to look there. I mean, that's pretty flush. And no, it doesn't actually raise up on the right. That is the curvature of the piece. Okay, now we have our now that we have our housing in and looking all good and shored up, we're going to go ahead and install this. Alright, and then just the last piece, you just pop in your trim, corner trim. Just make sure that that's popped in there nice and secure. And that's good. Now let's go plug the battery in. And there you go. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a 1998 to 2002 Mazda 66 silver or chrome door courtesy light housing on a 1993 to 1997 Mazda 66. I am going to call that a successful modification. Cool.